Hi, this is Dr. Rahman, and welcome to Black Women's Health. It's all about you, and we celebrate the Black woman. Welcome. I am glad to have you here. Let's talk. Welcome. I have a very special guest with me today, and his name is Sterling. I should share the story that I met Sterling in a very interesting way. A patient said to me, I have a friend that has a problem, and the friend is transgender male. Would you be able to see my friend? And I said yes, and that was my introduction to Sterling. Welcome, Sterling.
Hello.
Sterling has been kind enough to say that he is willing to share his experience of being a transgender male. And all of this is a bit confusing to a lot of people, so I'm going to just kind of take the time to kind of lay out my understanding, and then you can correct me or enhance my understanding by whatever you care to say.
Okay.
So we have what we call our genetic sex, and that's determined by our chromosomes, whether we're XX or XY. XX is a female, XY is a male. Then we have sex that's assigned to us when we're born. The OB looks between the legs and says, congratulations, you have a boy or you have a girl. Then there's our sexual identity, and that's how we see ourselves. Do we see ourselves as a female or male? And then there's sexual attraction. Are we attracted to females or are we attracted to males? So this whole sexual identity and understanding sexuality can be a bit confusing. And when you say someone's a transgender male, this is a person that was born with XX chromosomes. And when the doctor delivered the baby, the doctor said, this is a baby girl, but has decided that they're not really female, that they're male.
Yes.
So how did that happen? When did you decide, or when did you come to the conclusion, or how did you come to the conclusion that you're really male?
I think that when you're younger, you don't really have those words to say, like, a trans male or trans female, or some people identify as gender non-conforming, so they feel like they're neither or both. But ever since I was little, I played with male assigned toys and hung out with all boys and wore more masculine clothing, and it's something that my mother allowed, even though she'll deny now that she knew the entire time. And I didn't actually transition until I moved away from home at 29, and I get my top surgery, which is the removal of female breast tissue to make it more masculine, your chest more masculine. And then I started taking testosterone a year after that. So it hasn't been a long time since I've transitioned. Some people transition much earlier, but I do remember ever since I was little, being attracted to women, for example, like Lisa Bonet. I wanted to marry her when I was 5, and the men that other women thought were attractive, I wanted to look like them because I wanted women to like me in the same way they liked them. And that was ever since I was very small.
How did you know that you weren't homosexual, a lesbian, versus a male?
I think that for me and for a lot of trans guys, that's the first step, is identifying as a lesbian, because at first surgeries and hormones weren't as readily available. It's rapidly changing now that you can get those things in a lot of the states, especially bigger cities. I'm from Chicago, I lived in San Francisco, and even Philadelphia has trans clinics. So first you identify as lesbian, but you still, I guess it's mental. Like you, in your mind, you feel different. Uh, you become uncomfortable with like someone like using female pronouns with you, or I don't know. I feel like once I left Chicago and moved to California, where healthcare is more comprehensive, I saw that I could transition, and then it kind of hit me at that point. Like, before that, I kind of felt like I was gender nonconforming. I didn't really feel like a woman or a man. And then once I saw the possibilities that I could transition, that's when I kind of went for it and started to slowly and gradually transition. And then it's always like the fear of for me, your family rejecting you. So my mom is really religious. So that's something that even if like unconsciously or subconsciously I knew, it's something that I was probably repressing until I was away from her.
So you left home in order to be your authentic self?
Yes.
And have you gone back home as you?
Oh yeah, I went back home. I got the top surgery and I didn't tell my family about it. And I went back and my mom was kind of looking at me strangely. And after I left, it was for Christmas. She's like, "I know you. I gave birth to you. Like something was different." And I told her, and she was pretty upset. She's like, "For you to disclude me from that decision, like in case something bad happened during the surgery." But also, even after telling her I get top surgery, she put that into like her own narrative and told herself I got top surgery because my sister had breast cancer, instead of accepting the reason why I got top surgery. So it's just been up until more recently that we just don't discuss it.
What name does she call you?
She still calls me the name she gave me.
Your birth name?
My birth name, yes.
So she's still missing her daughter?
Yes. And it's understandable because someone has called you something your whole entire life. That changes. It's hard. But it's different when people try. So my sister, for example, she doesn't necessarily agree, but she tries to make the change.
Yes.
Or when you, like friends I grew up with, they might make a mistake. But when you make the attempt to try is when I know you're accepting me for who I am, as opposed to just, I'm not even going to try, I'm just going to call you what I named you or what you were named because that's what I want to do. And it's become confusing because there's like younger children in the family. So they see me now, I've never met them, and you're calling me her and she, and I have a mustache and I have a deep voice, it confuses them.
I have to tell you, one of the things I admire about you is that I know in your situation, being true to yourself was hard.
Yeah,
you had to kind of go against the grain in order to be you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't always do that. So so you deliberately left home when you felt like you were in search of yourself?
No, I left home for other reasons. I was dating someone and she got a job in California. And she happened to get a job at a clinic that specialized in like hormone therapy for trans people. And I ended up becoming friends with someone she worked with. And he's a trans man. And he and one of the doctors who he works with is also a trans man. They have a lot to do with why California healthcare is so comprehensive, and it covers most trans surgery, like even facial hair removal for trans women, things like that. And he just told me how easy it is to access that care. And that's when I started.
It's easy to get health insurance for that type of care?
Most of the insurance in California covers it. So
really?
You just, like Kaiser is like one of those closed networks. So if you tell your primary care, I'm interested in transitioning, they give you a referral to the trans clinic in Kaiser. You go there, then they refer you right to surgery, and it all happened within 3 months.
So they don't require you to see a psychiatrist or
you do
any.
Yeah,
that's part of the evaluation.
So that's the first thing. Yeah, you tell someone, you see that person, you talk to them for 2 hours or so, and then they basically,
And what are they trying to ascertain?
Mostly it's if you have support. So it's not necessarily to tell you are you sure you're trans? Because they know most people know that. They just want to make sure that once you start to transition, you're safe. You're not like living at home with a parent that's going to be abusive, or a partner who's going to leave you. If you are suicidal, you have suicidal ideation. If you have a job, like those are the kinds of things. If you're going to be able to afford the transition in hormones, and then of course they're checking to make sure that it's something that you want to do.
And usually, the breast surgery is the first step, even before hormones.
Some people take hormones first. Back in the day, they used to make you live and go by your chosen name for a year, and then live as the gender that you're transitioning into, to make sure that you were sure.
This is before anything physical changes.
Yeah. So that's maybe, really hard. I guess 10 years ago.
So you're still walking around with breasts and hair and everything, but you're calling yourself Sterling.
Exactly.
So how do people react to you? I mean, that seems very bizarre.
Yeah. I think it's much easier for trans men to sort of like pass, because like I used to bind my breast with like an ace wrap so that it appeared flat. I've always had a deeper voice, so it was easier for me to pass rather than like a trans woman who's already like hit puberty as a male, quote unquote male, and has a deep voice and facial hair, to walk around and try to, without any hormones to help like that feminization process. So they changed that, and it's much easier. Some states, I'm sure, aren't as like comprehensive as like a liberal state like California, but I guess it was to make sure. But even like statistics show, like I think there's 1.2 million documented trans people in the U.S. And maybe a handful of people decide to go back after they have surgery, or like stop taking hormones. And sometimes it's for health reasons, but rarely is it because they think they made a mistake.
So one day you come to work and you're she, and then the next day you go to work and you say, "Call me Sterling"?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I felt like it was an easier transition in California, because that is the culture there. San Francisco is, it's almost like the gay capital of the United States. There's rainbow flags everywhere. Every healthcare system has some sort of like LGBTQ plus like building that takes care of those services. So I basically I emailed everybody, and I'd already got my top surgery, and I told
you had your top surgery done in California.
In California. So I get that done
To be clear, that's removal of breast tissue.
Breast tissue.
Only.
Yeah. Only, yeah.
Okay.
And I get that done, and I didn't really tell everybody why I got it done. I'm assuming they knew. And then maybe like a month later, I just sent out an email I worked at a healthcare clinic also. So maybe people who work in healthcare are also more open-minded, because you see a large population of people. The demographic is more vast. So we take care of trans patients. I emailed them, and I told them that I was changing my name. And the reception was great, like immediately. And this is why I also know it is easy for people, no matter how long they've known you, to switch pronouns and to switch the name, because immediately everybody
you saw it happen.
Immediately, yeah. There was no one that accidentally called me by my birth name. Sometimes like pronouns are difficult, but it like changed instantly. And
so this is another question. Men can sometimes develop breast cancer because they have breast tissue. Is it your understanding that there's no possibility for you to develop breast cancer? Or do you... no, let me say that differently. Is it your understanding that all of your breast tissue has been removed?
I don't think it is. I think that the possibility to get breast cancer is still there, because like you said, even like I guess genetic males or XY males can get breast cancer. The rates are low, but I'm assuming that someone who has XX chromosomes and even still has a lot of estrogen, if they haven't had like hysterectomy, can get breast cancer. But since it's such a new field of study, There hasn't been like a lot of research done. People are kind of just now starting to transition,
Right.
like greater numbers.
Right. I'm wondering if your surgeon said, you still need to get a mammogram.
I believe they usually tell trans men that when you come to that age, something will be figured out by that time.
Interesting.
Yeah, but there is breast tissue because no male is totally flat chested, so they try to make it look like obviously like you're contoured like a male body,
So there's plastic surgery also involved.
Well, they leave some of the tissue, so it's
so
like
it looks
forming
like
a chest.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, they're not going to take everything out like a breast cancer patient would also.
And you still have nipples and everything else.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And lymph nodes and everything is still there. So the possibility of breast cancer for trans men, especially for people with a familial history, and that's also the issue why if it's something that's kept in the dark and we don't talk about it and people feel ashamed to get services or they don't feel comfortable going to places to get a mammogram, like a person with a full beard going and getting a mammogram, it feels like people have to make you feel comfortable. Because it's your health and safety are at stake.
I mean, that's what you were saying. In California, there were enough people who had transitioned, who understood the lifestyle, that it wasn't, I'm sure it was difficult, but it wasn't as hard as it could have been.
Yes, yeah. It
but then you moved.
Yeah, to Philadelphia.
And in general, the climate is not as accepting, or you have noticed a difference or haven't noticed a difference in terms of acceptance?
Since I came here and I was already had the top surgery, I already have been on hormones for about 2.5 to 3 years. Most people didn't know. And it's not a secret. It's not it's something. I don't identify as a man. I'm not trying to necessarily pass. I identify as a trans man, which I feel some people don't feel like it's different. I feel like...
You think it's different?
I feel like, personally, I have a different narrative than someone who was born male, assigned male at birth.
If you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I know, a lot of trans people, they want to pass. They want to
be seen as a male.
They want to be seen as
an
male.
XY
I'm
male.
a man, yeah.
Yes.
And trans women want to be seen, I'm a woman, which is fine because that's their gender identity. And I identify as a trans male because in my mind, my history and narrative is different. So I didn't have a male puberty. I grew up without male privilege. Those are all things
that's interesting.
play a big part. Just like many trans women grew up with male privilege. So their scope of view, their scope of view on the world might be different.
Okay, so you've been female and you've been male.
Yes.
Is there male privilege?
Yeah, there's even just masculine privilege. So even when I was a masculine female, I felt like in the queer scene or lesbian scene, had more privilege, or people listened to me or took me more seriously because I was masculine. So just being a masculine woman in that scene, maybe not in the regular world with people who are heterosexual, but in the queer world, being a masculine person, you have more privilege. People listen to you more. So then moving into being seen as a genetic male, or just as as male by the world, I don't have to worry walking down the street at night if somebody is going to try to sexually assault me. If I speak, people listen.
And that wasn't as true, or you didn't feel that to be as true when you were a female?
No. And especially with obviously sexual harassment. That's something as being viewed as a woman, sexual harassment was there. Even as a masculine woman, people would still sexually harass me and comment on my body and things like that. Dressed like a man, dressed in masculine clothes, men are still commenting. Yeah, and that obviously doesn't happen anymore unless, males get sexually assaulted too and harassed, but it's different.
Well, this brings up an interesting topic because you're also African American.
Yeah, so that's the crossroad is I have male privilege, but I'm
you're
a black man. Yeah. So then, like, I'm not afraid of being sexually assaulted, but I could be afraid of being shot by the police now. You know, so
that is not funny.
it's like
that is
yeah, it's something
that
that
is the times we live in, but that is not funny
I was
at
gonna
all.
like write a blog about that. It's like taking like a step into privilege, but then like also a step back. So it's like it's hard to navigate. And then a lot of the privilege that people might think that they have when they transition also might come with having more confidence. So maybe you didn't speak up as much when you were like when you didn't feel comfortable in your own body, and now you speak up more, or you felt like because you were assigned female at birth that people weren't going to listen to you, so you kept quiet, and now you are taking that privilege and speaking out more often. So it's hard to figure out what it is. It's probably a mix of all those things.
So, can we talk about dating?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So now, you've seen the perspective of being the female and being approached by a male, and now you're a male approaching females.
Yeah.
Any comments about that in general?
Yeah, I do not approach women. So it's really hard. It's really difficult to date, first of all, because it's hard to think that anybody is going to want to date you as a trans male. So generally I'm attracted to, so more clarification of like terminology is like a trans male or female versus a cis man or woman. And a cis man and a cis woman are people who are comfortable with what they were assigned at
Right. I was assigned a female. I feel I feel as though I'm a female, and I act like I'm a female.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I date cis women or women who were assigned women at birth and felt comfortable with that. Versus like I've never dated a trans woman. I don't date men, and I don't date trans men.
So if this is too personal, just tell me to keep going.
Okay.
At what point do you start talking about this is who I am? And in general, is the reception good?
Everyone who knows me personally knows right off I eventually tell them if they don't know. And I've been surprised that some people don't know, and I've known them for months. Because I still don't know if I fully pass. Or I think everybody talks and gossips. So everybody at work already knows. And then, like, I've known someone for 8 months, and they're like, I didn't know you were trans. But if it's like a dating scenario, it's something that I tell people immediately.
Immediately?
That's the first thing.
Hi, my name is, and I am.
Well, I don't approach people like that. So if I'm on a dating app, it's in the app that I'm a trans male. Okay. So you shouldn't click on my icon if you don't want that.
Right.
And then everyone else like that I would be around, like I don't approach women in bars. I don't meet people like that. Generally.
But you find that there are cis females who are attracted to trans. I'm getting all my words confused. But a woman who feels as though she's a woman, you have found that there are women that are attracted to you.
Yes. And it's hard because I feel like some women, they might be attracted initially, and then if they find out, or if I tell them I'm trans, then that scares them because they don't know what they are. They think, am I a lesbian?
Yes.
You know, how do I identify now? Yes. And then there's like dating queer or lesbian women, they sometimes want someone who's like more feminine, who identifies as a woman, not someone who is a male, you know, with facial hair and a deep voice. And sometimes their identity is really important, so they want to go in public and have people know they're lesbian, and no one that they identify as that. But if they're with me, it just looks like we're a heterosexual, you know, cisgender couple. And like the woman I'm dating now, she's never like dated women. She's never dated trans men. She's only dated cis males. But she said that she knew immediately I was trans, but she was attracted to me.
All right. This is the last question in this line. Without going into too much detail, the two of you are able to satisfy each other sexually.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So tell me about the hormones. Um, the hormones will be needed the rest of your life.
Yes.
Are they pills? Are there injections? Are there multiple medications that you need to take?
I take an intramuscular injection of testosterone, and that's weekly. Some people take it less often. Some people take a higher dose. It just depends on how your body responds to it, and then the effect that you want. And the dosage doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna, like, a higher dosage doesn't mean you're gonna immediately
get a deeper voice.
Right. It because your body's gonna interact with that medication and do what it is going to do, and then you get your labs taken usually every like 3 months to 6 months to make sure your testosterone levels are within like a normal range.
So testosterone's the only medication you have to take?
Yes, yeah, and it comes in gel form, like a topical lotion or gel, or an intramuscular injection, but most insurances don't cover the gel. And also with the gel, it can transfer to people you touch. So if you have a partner and you're touching them, that gel can transfer to them.
And you inject yourself?
I inject myself, yes.
Are there any health risks that you are now at an increased risk for as a result of taking the testosterone?
Usually things that affect males, so heart disease, high cholesterol. And that's why you continue to go to get like your CBC and your CMP to make sure that those numbers or ratios are in line. So yeah, it mostly is just an increase for heart disease.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why that is.
All right. So you mentioned that you had the breast surgery, but you didn't have any pelvic surgery.
No, not yet.
Is that typical, or is there a typical?
For like to have a male phallus.
Well, so I would think that, I didn't even think about this. As a result of getting the testosterone, your period stopped?
Yes, it stops.
Okay, but you still have a uterus?
Yes.
And ovaries and fallopian tubes,
yeah.
And is the thought that you should remove it, or that's just a purely individual? Is the recommendation that they should be removed, or is it just individual decision?
It's individual decision. I think that some people keep it in case they want to have like a future partner, or if they want to carry a child themselves in the future. And then some people, I think they just want the outside to look masculine. So instead of like putting yourself through another surgery and putting yourself at risk, they choose not to get a hysterectomy because the menstrual cycle stops. So if it's not bothering you, then why take it out? I have heard.
So no PMS,
none of that,
no cramps and all that. Okay, that stops.
That stops.
Does that stop almost immediately once you start getting the testosterone, or is it a gradual?
For some people, it stops pretty quickly. For me, it took almost 6 months, but I was also on a lower dose of testosterone, so it might be dependent upon the dosage that you're taking also.
So this is how we meet.
Yes.
This is how we meet, because you still have your internal female organs, but as is common with XX females, black females, there's a higher risk of fibroids. And now you find that you have fibroids.
Yes, and that's when I knew that I had to follow up with it, and I followed up with my primary care, because while I was in California, my primary care was a part of the trans clinic, and that person diagnosed me with fibroids, but I moved before I could get an ultrasound. So when I came here, my primary care, she doesn't seem comfortable working with a trans patient, so she isn't doing like a physical exam. She isn't suggesting I get ultrasound. Like, these are things I had to go into the office and request instead of her suggesting. She diagnosed the mass in my abdomen as gas from February 2019 up until my last visit with her, August, where she diagnosed it with as gas again, even though it's in the same spot and gradually getting bigger, which is why I spoke to my coworker about it, and my coworker told me about you.
So, is it usually difficult to find healthcare providers that say, no problem, I don't have a problem with you being a trans male or a trans female? Is it harder for a trans male? Do you know that type of information? Or is there a community? I guess that's the other thing.
I feel like in most places there's like a community. So here there's Mazzoni Center, but in most big cities have like an LGBTQ plus center. But a lot of those places focus on gay male health. So they focus on HIV and AIDS treatment, STD treatment, or STI treatment. And then they'll have a trans clinic, which is generally overrun. The doctor's panels are too full to see more patients. And that's what happened at Mazzoni. I tried to get into Mazzoni, and the appointment was 3 to 5 months out. And then they usually have resources where they'll list trans-friendly offices because they know they're at capacity. And this is why I chose the office I went to see my primary, and I got bumped off the person's panel that I initially signed up for.
Do you think there's a different experience for African American or non-white trans in general, or you think it's pretty much the same experience, or how would you know?
Yeah, it's hard to, I think, tell, because I think a lot of trans people...
I guess I'm asking, is there racism in the trans world?
Of course, yeah. Of course. I think that white people in general feel more entitled and comfortable going into places and demanding things. And people are used to catering to them no matter what package they're in. Right? Which is why, like, black trans women have a really high rate of homicide. Probably one of the highest in the country. Because they're seen as disposable. You know, our own community doesn't accept them. And the other communities already didn't accept them. And then, you know, once you're pushed out of your own community, it goes downhill from there. So there's definitely racism. But as far as, like, getting care, a lot of it might be like psychological. I don't feel comfortable. They aren't going to accept me, so I'm just not going to look for it. And that's probably across the board. But in general, white people might feel more comfortable demanding what they need. Versus me as like a black man, I can't go somewhere and start yelling at somebody to give me a service. Because it's just going to, it won't turn out very well.
Okay, so, I mean, we're going to start wrapping this up, but do you think there are any misconceptions or fallacies or myths that you need to just debunk about being trans male or?
I think the big thing is just gender in general, and like biological or genetic sex in general, is that people have made it. They've kind of like dumbed it down to like, I'd say like XX and XY, when like intersex people, for example, are a part of the population too, and intersex people are as common as redhead people in the population. But since people are so used to just it being black and white, male and female, and then assigning gender and gender roles to that male and female category, all the people in the middle get erased. But there's a lot of people in the middle. And there's a lot of people in the middle of those two categories who you probably know, who won't come out, who won't feel comfortable dressing how they are or presenting how they are, because it's just not accepted in society.
Speaking about being accepted, I don't know if you've had any interaction with the church or religion, or do you feel accepted as you are? My question may not be clear, but the African American church has kind of been, in general, opposed to homosexuality. Now, you're not a homosexual, but you've done that kind of strange thing, you know?
Yeah.
Have you had the experience of the church experience, or had a positive or a negative experience?
I mean, I just stay far away from the church because my mom is so religious, and she's like the epitome of how black people kind of interpret the Bible literally until it comes to their own transgressions. So it's, homosexuals and like trans individuals were visible. So it's something that someone can point to and say like, you're gay and that's wrong, you're gonna go to hell, versus like the cheater, the person who's stealing money, like the glutton, like capitalism, all these things that are terrible, that the black church is okay with, like not taking care of your children, like cheating on your wife, like all those things. Like we don't really talk about those in the black church, but it's really easy to attack homosexuals or trans individuals.
And have you felt the attack?
No, because I don't put myself in that situation. I would never.
You anticipate
go
that
to
you
a
would
black
be.
church. No, I would never. But it's because like the things that, like my mom has calmed down a lot now, but at first, like just even coming out as like a lesbian, and like for example, my nephew he's gay. Like what we hear from the family is like we're going to hell and all these things, and we know differently. We know that God is not like that, and God is about love and acceptance. So it's like I'm not going to step foot into like a place or put myself in a place where I have to debate hypocrisy and like the Bible, So it's like a source of trauma, I feel like, for a lot of like queer black people and trans black people. And some of them are still in there. Like a lot of males in the church and the choir are gay males, which is really interesting because they're right there. And
it's just total denial.
Yeah.
Just denial.
Yeah.
What is it? Don't ask, don't tell, don't tell, don't ask. Something like that.
Yes.
All right. So, do you feel free?
I do feel free.
Good for you.
Yeah, I really do.
Good for you.
Actually, more people. I feel like if more people had like the foundation of you feeling like free and safe and having high self-esteem starts at home. So if people accepted their children, it doesn't matter what the world says to you when you go outside, because you already know you have that support and that foundation at home. So when you go outside, it doesn't matter if people disagree with what you are, because people have already like instilled love into you. But also like when I move around the world, like people are accepting of me. Like everywhere that I've worked, like I get along with people. Like no one's ever said anything to my face that was like transphobic or non-accepting of who I was. And it might be because of my personality or who I am, but I haven't felt like any hate towards me because of that, because I'm trans. So it's great.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. You've been very open and very honest, and I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. You did it. Good for you. So how do you feel?
I feel good.
So this is Dr. Rahman saying it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I look forward to talking with you real soon. Until then, be well, be healthy, and enjoy life.